Welcome back to Little Boy Customs. Today we're going to be working on a 2013 Dodge Ram, namely this back tire back here. If you're anything like me, you do your own mechanic work because you can't afford a certified mechanic, so you look on YouTube and become a YouTube mechanic like myself. And about 2 months ago I did a brake job on this truck. Since then, this driver's side rear tire has been howling like a cat in heat. So we're going to take this tire off, check it out, see what's going on, and hopefully get it fixed. So went down to my local O'Reilly's Auto Parts. Got some parts, got a new brake rotor, new brake pads, and just in case, and got a new brake caliper. I don't know what is broken on the truck, but definitely something is, and so therefore we're going to fix it. I went ahead with got the upgraded Bosch brand brake rotor. Did that mainly because the icebox in the house is Bosch, and well, it works great, so it's got to be working good on this thing too. If nothing else, it'll keep the brakes cool, hopefully. So first things first, let's get the old jack underneath her and see if we can't get the thing up in the air a little bit. Oh yeah. I know what you're asking yourself. Aren't you going to put a jack stand underneath there? No, not today. Not today. We're only going to do one tire. I ain't got time to put the jack stand underneath there. I got other things to do today. Let me get my old air ratchet here. Get these lug nuts off. That worked out pretty good. Last one, almost done. Woohoo! Yeah! So now that we got the wheel off, let's get in here and I'll show you what is wrong with the truck. I didn't think it was going to be what it is, but so what the problem is this shim right here has messed up at some point in time, and if you look at it right there, you can tell right there is the brake pad, right here is the shim, which means that this brake pad that's on the inside here is actually not hitting the rotor completely solid flat like it's supposed to. It's actually in there cockeyed, so it's hitting like this here, so the back side of the pad's wearing out and the front side of the pad is not doing anything. So good news is don't need to replace the brake caliper, just need to replace the pads, and then I'm going to go ahead and replace the rotor. I don't need to necessarily, but this one here is the original rotor to the truck, and truck has almost 200,000 miles on it, so I'm going to go ahead and put the new rotor on. I've already done it to all the other 4 tires. Should be a pretty easy job to take this, to get this off. We're going to take both the caliper and then what holds the caliper in place off. What holds the caliper on is a 21 millimeter socket. We'll get the 2 bolts off, and then the actual brake caliper on the rear here is a 10 millimeter. On the front, I think they're 13 millimeter or something like that. So if you're redoing your brakes, you need at least those 2 tools. We'll take this off. We'll clean up what's going on here. We'll get the brake rotor off. Now on Dodge, I don't know exactly what years. This is a 2013. I know it goes on up from there quite a ways. It could go all the way to 19 or maybe even 21, 22. But this particular truck has 2 sets of brakes on the back. One is your disc brakes that you would normally use, and then for emergency brakes, it has drum brakes on the inside. So if you're living up north somewhere, you're going to have to try to beat these off. Luckily, I'm down here in the south. We don't get that much road salt and that kind of stuff. So this should come off pretty easily. At least it did on the other side. So it is a smart idea before you unbolt this to go ahead and try to back this caliper up a little bit. The piston that's on the inside of it, the easiest way to do that's a crowbar. Once you've been able to take the caliper part off that holds the piston inside of it, that pushes on the brake pads, what I like to do is I like to hang it off of the bar, the thing. Hang it off the bar, the thing. Torque bar. I don't know what it's called. Just get it out of the way. Hang it somewhere. Grab your 21, got 2 of those bolts. Now I'm not gonna lie, these are kind of like stuck on. I don't know if they use red RTV or what, but they're on there for reals. This is where I get my persuader. Remember, blue RTV is for when you want it off later. Red is for when you never want it off again. So this is the part of the brake caliper that holds the pads on and everything. And if you can see, this whole brake pad is completely gone. Now, like I said, I changed these out just like 2 months ago, so I definitely installed these wrong. That's my fault. If you don't believe me, this is from the passenger side. You can see how much more meat there was. So what happened was whenever I was installing, I wasn't watching. As you can see, the brake pad needs to go in side of that right there, and then goes in there, both top and bottom. But I messed up on this one side and I didn't get it in all the way. So every time it would press against it, it was hitting here. So the piston pushes on this side, it hit right there and then didn't seat right. And so as you can see, just wore it out really quickly. Over here we need to still take the brake rotor off. It's actually a pretty easy job. You need to get a pair of pliers or whatever and just pry this up a little bit. And as you do that, you can do one of two things. You can either cut this off completely or pry it up a little bit and start unthreading it, and it will unthread itself. It takes a little bit of time, but it's well worth it, because what these actually do is just hold this in place while you're trying to get the brake caliper back on. So I'm going to take a pair of pliers, get this popped off, and then get the actual rotor off. We'll put the new rotor on. Almost done. So I'm going to do the right thing, get a pair of docks. There's little tabs on there. If you'll just kind of pull on them a little bit, they'll actually start popping out. Then it starts unthreading itself. And you're done. Let's see if we can't get this rotor off. Little persuasion. You can say this rotor needs to be replaced. I'm sure it's still enough there in order to grind that down, but I just put a new set on. Here's the second set of brake shoes I was telling you about. So this is your emergency brake. If you ever need to, if you're trying to get this off and these are swollen or whatever, it's like the old brake system. There is a rubber boot. So there is a rubber boot right there. Pop this rubber boot off, then take you a regular flathead screwdriver, and look on this side. Right here, you would take the screwdriver and turn that dial, and it would pull these back together to release these. It's just like an old set of drum brakes on any classic car that you've ever worked on, if you've worked on one. Alright, here's the new brake rotor. You have 3 options at this point, depending on whose car you're working on. If it's an ex-wife's or whatever, or maybe it's an ex-husband's, you know, not discriminating. You can always grease this area up here, and that really helps keep the brakes quiet. If you're working on a vehicle that you may, you know, want to you're trying to show off a little bit and that kind of stuff, I'd highly suggest just taping this area up right here where the brake pads are going to be at, and then take some whatever color choice you got and spray paint all this area here. It makes it look a little bit better. But I hear when you do paint your brake rotors, it only adds about 5 kitty cat power. I'm not really interested in kitty cat power. I'm more interested in dinosaur torque. So I'm going to do the right thing and just put them on like they are. Now, if you were able to save this little ring thing here, this is your chance to put it back on and be OEM factory. That's always important. To the purist, that is. Now that I've done the brakes on this truck twice, this being the second time, I've come to find out that it's easier to take this piece off and put your brake pads in on it and then put this piece back on, versus leaving this in the truck and then trying to get the brake pads into it. It's really pain to do that. First things first, we got brand new little shims. So we'll do the right thing and shim it up. Alright, so once you get it like this, you see the black is both underneath both of these. Same over here on this side. Hopefully that spacing will be about right, but we'll try to get that onto the rotor and bolt it back on. By the way, if you are working on the X's car at this point, you'll want to grease the inside of these pads up as well. You know, to match the grease that you put on the rotors. Now that I'm starting to bolt these up, I just remembered. Factory, they came with blue Loctite on them, so you might want to do that before you start bolting them back on. But if you're fixing to trade your vehicle in and you're not going to use it any longer, definitely put red Loctite on there. That way you leave your mark for the next guy that's got to change out the brakes. Yep, that's torqued about right. So now that you've bolted this on, if you get back down here, as you can see, there's gaps in between the brake pads and the rotor. All you want to do is squeeze these back together. Get rid of those gaps. Make sure that your black areas are inside your shams. And then when you get ready to put the actual brake caliper piston area back on, it'll actually fit and you don't have to struggle to try to get it on. Bada boom, bada bing. Put the tire back on, you're done. Now you can use an impact on one of these, but remember, try to hand start these lug nuts, otherwise you could cross thread them real easy. Last thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you torque them down. Now we can lower the truck down and see how she does. Remember, when you're working on cars, try to do things that are safe. Don't do anything that's going to hurt anyone else, namely putting grease on brakes. That should have to go without being said. I was joking, but just in case. I know my sense of humor is somewhat dry. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. If you liked what you saw, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you share. It helps me out greatly. Until next time, thanks for watching. Be safe.